Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, it dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn his heat. It's gone. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Counted. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. Ja Morant, insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast, Grizzlies Win Edition. My name is Keith Parrish. The Grizzlies had a very successful weekend. They win both of their games. They've now won 6 straight. They've won 9 of 10. 2 consecutive wins on the road. Look out. The Grizzlies beat the Atlanta Hawks in Atlanta 123-119 on Sunday. And on Friday, they have a home game to remember. They drop 151 points on the Houston Rockets. Luke Kennard sets a franchise record with 10 made threes, and the Grizzlies roll. Let's start with the game on Friday, and then we'll work our way to the game on Sunday. Of course, I will be bouncing around because I cannot help myself. The win on Friday, as the team improves to 32-5 at home, best home record in the NBA still. They tie their franchise record for most home wins in a season. They have the opportunity to break that this week. They have 3 home games this week. The first chance will be on Tuesday night against the Magic. They improved to 13-0 on Friday and Saturday night home games specifically. A weekend home game at the FedEx Forum. Guaranteed good time. And you got the second matchup against the Rockets after not the most convincing win on the previous Wednesday. The Grizzlies come out pretty fast, have a huge second quarter powered by Luke Kennard starting to make some of those three-pointers. The team overall, of course, set a franchise record with 25 made threes. They finished the first half on a big run. They go up by 31 points headed into halftime. That's the second largest halftime advantage the Grizzlies have ever had. The largest advantage was the time they beat the Thunder by 73. A lot about this game had similarities to that win last year where they beat the Thunder by 73. That game, they set a franchise record with 152 points in a game. Well, the 151 they scored against the Rockets on Friday, so that's the second most points in franchise history. The Grizzlies led 83-52 at halftime. The 83 points, the second most points in a first half in franchise history. The most points in a first half in franchise history is 86. The 86-point first half came the final game of the 2019 season. DeLon Wright and Javon Carter had huge performances in that one. That's against the Warriors. A very silly final game of a tank season at the very, very end. That's the only time the Grizzlies have scored more in a first half. In the third quarter of the game against the Rockets, that's when things really got out of hand, and that's when Luke Kennard went off. Absolute nuke Kennard game. He was, in fact, nuclear. Could not miss. Makes 10 out of 11 three-pointers. The previous franchise record for most threes in a game was 9. Was held by Mike Miller, who did it twice, and Jaren Jackson Jr. Luke Kennard blew right by that. He got whatever he wanted, and it was one of the more fun viewing experiences, I feel like, as a Grizzlies fan. We've had an up and down last couple of months. Yeah, they're on a hot streak right now, but I felt like we deserved that as a fan base to have that much fun. And Kennard matches his career high with 30 points. He becomes the second player in NBA history to score 30 or more points without a free throw or two-pointer. Malik Beasley is the only other player to do that. Kennard is the 10th player ever to score 30 or more without making a two-pointer. So that's a little bit less rare. Kennard did become the only player, if we want to talk about extremely rare, the only player ever to make 10 or more threes in a game while also shooting over 90% from the field for the game. So a solid 90.9 field goal percentage for Luke Kennard. A true shooting percentage of, it's basically broken, 1.36. So, over 1,000 true shooting percentage. He drops 30 points in 24 minutes, makes 10 three-pointers. A remarkable run off the bench. Now, when you combine it with the Atlanta game, the win against the Hawks, Kennard has gone in double digits in 7 straight games. His stats over that time frame, well, they're of course absurd. Anytime you sprinkle in a 10-for-11 from 3 in a 7-game sample size, it's going to skew things, but I'll say them just for fun anyways. In his last 7 games, he is averaging 15.4 points per game. He's making 4.4 threes per game, shooting 60.8% from 3. Since he joined the Grizzlies, he is making 2.8 threes per game and shooting 53.7% on three-pointers. Yes, sure, it's skewed by a 10-for-11 in there, but even if you take the 10-for-11 out, it's still right at 50%. So Kennard leading the NBA in three-point percentage, and we saw it in this one. And he's definitely won me over with these offensive performances off the bench. Yeah, the Grizzlies have not solved their problems yet. I know it feels like we're clicking, and everyone keeps saying we're clicking, and certainly we've won our games. We've beaten the opponents put in front of us. But also, like you saw it in the Hawks game and in the previous Rockets game, the offensive rebounding is still a big issue where the Grizzlies give up tons of second chance points. Like the Hawks got 31 second chance points. It's not all Luke Kennard's fault. He's one of many players on the team not very good at defensive rebounding. But so far, the addition of Luke Kennard has been a huge boost for this Grizzlies team that was going through a lot, with the on-court, off-court stuff with Ja Morant. They've needed that three-point attack, and the three-point attack is working. Against the Hawks, the Grizzlies made 13 threes, which is, pretty good. We call that pretty good. It's solid for the Grizzlies. For the rest of the NBA, it's just like, that's an okay game. It's maybe slightly above average. Kennard makes 4 out of 9 against the Hawks, but that 13 made threes has been a magical number for the Grizzlies this year. Not only is it what they're averaging with Luke Kennard on the team, but this season when the Grizzlies make 13 or more three-pointers, they're 24-3. The Grizzlies are 24-3 this season when making 13 or more three-pointers. So the addition of Luke Kennard right now seems to be a huge upgrade for the Grizzlies bench and perhaps a little bit of a missing piece. Now, will the playoffs be a totally different animal? Yeah, I think so. But as of now, good job, Luke Kennard. Great game, of course, against the Rockets, and he's been on a heater for the past 7 games. Going back to the Rockets game, it wasn't just Luke Kennard providing the offensive firepower. Desmond Bane, he scored 25 and made 5 three-pointers. He did his damage in under 20 minutes of playing time. The 2 times a Grizzlies player has scored 25 or more in 20 or fewer minutes, Desmond Bane in this game and Jaren Jackson Jr. back in that Oklahoma City game from last year when they won by 73. He had 25 also in 20 minutes. Tyus Jones started that 73-point win. He also started this massive victory, this 151-point game. The 2 times in Grizzlies franchise history they've scored over 150 points in a game, Tyus Jones was a starter. Now, Ja played in this game, where he did not play in the Thunder game. Ja Morant, in his second game back, came off the bench once again as they ease him into more minutes. Of course, Ja Morant could do whatever he wanted, literally, against the Rockets' second unit. In that big second quarter, Ja just, scored or assisted every single time he got the ball, it felt like. He finished in this game with 18 points and 8 assists, got a block. I mean, Ja was huge in his time. But the interesting novelty stat about the Grizzlies scoring a lot of points when Tyus Jones is the starter, and something I highlighted last year. The Grizzlies have these big blowout wins when Tyus Jones start. They have scored more when Tyus Jones starts. If you want to pick it apart, you could say, all right, well, based on the opponent, it's not a good opponent. Clearly the Rockets are terrible. Last year the Thunder were terrible. I don't know the reason. But I do know now in the Grizzlies franchise history, in 28 years of Grizzlies basketball, they have scored over 75 points in a first half. This is a first half specific stat. They've scored over 75 points in a first half 12 times, ever. Now, 10 of these instances have been in the last 3 years. But of those 12 games in Grizzlies franchise history, Tyus Jones has been the starter in half of them. Tyus Jones has been the starter in 6 of the 12 games where the Grizzlies dropped 75 or more in the first half. Ja Morant started 4, and then Mike Conley started 1, and DeLon Wright started 1. That was the half they scored 86 against the Warriors a few years ago. So interestingly, for whatever reason, when Tyus Jones is the starter, they blow some people out. The three-point disparity was especially huge. They made 18 more threes than the Rockets. That is the 7th highest disparity in NBA history. It was the biggest disparity in Grizzlies franchise history. When you outscore your opponent by 54 points on three-pointers, that is madness. The 151 points meant the Grizzlies scored over 130 points for the 12th time this season. That's a franchise record. The Grizzlies have now won 27 games in a row when they score at least 130 points. The Grizzlies finished 11-1 this season against teams from Texas. They swept the Rockets. They swept the Spurs. They went 3-1 against the Mavericks. The Grizzlies, in their 4 games against the Rockets, of course boosted by this 25 made 3 output, but the Grizzlies against the Rockets this year are averaging 18.3 made 3s. Against the rest of the NBA, they only average 11.4 made 3s per game. If you don't want a buzzkill, maybe you skip ahead 30 seconds, but I've said it like 5 to 10 times this year. We have to throw out all stats against the Rockets this year. Everybody gets career highs against them. They are a uniquely putrid basketball team. And we saw that with this fun blowout. I mean, Jaren Jackson Jr. had 18 points. He got 2 blocks and 2 steals. They didn't need much of anything from everyone. Not much was asked of the guys. It was a blowout quickly because of the huge 3-point disparity and Luke Kennard having the game of his life. Now, there was not a drop-off in the follow-up game against the Hawks. I think it's natural to worry there might be. And, of course, the Grizzlies have been, night and day, their home performances, which have been great, and then their road performances, which have been a struggle. But the Grizzlies didn't really have, I don't think, that much of a letdown. There might be a few critiques we can make about the win against the Hawks. I mean, all road wins are good wins right now is where I'm at. They started Ja Morant. Again, they finally put him back in the lineup. They were not going to keep running Ja Morant as a 6th man. I mean, it's not a thing that happens in the NBA. Sure, it's like an interesting idea because the starters play so well with Tyus Jones, and honestly, Tyus Jones hasn't been that elite as a backup. As a starter, he's been great. As a backup, he's been up and down. And you're like, all right, what if we really have fixed our bench problems by having Ja Morant just feast on second units? I don't know. No one does this in the NBA, brings your best player off the bench. I didn't expect the Grizzlies to do it for much longer. They're trying to work Ja's minutes back up. They actually got into a little bit of trouble here. It seems like they ran out of Ja minutes. Taylor Jenkins was saying, like they were trying to limit him to the mid-20s. He ended up playing 29 minutes. So he was out at the start of the fourth quarter when the Hawks cut into the lead once again. But Ja Morant back in the starting lineup. And Ja Morant, I mean, I'd say a good game, a good offensive game. The Grizzlies' defense was not up to the standard it has been in other games, but Ja Morant finishes with 27 points against the Hawks, has 6 assists, 3 rebounds, and a steal. Of course, that's in 29 minutes, goes 9 out of 11 from the line. Desmond Bane had 25 points for the second straight game. 25 points, 5 assists. He was unstoppable, it felt like, on offense. Made 11 out of 18 field goal attempts. So you get 52 points from your starting backcourt, which is good. I do think there's a drawback that Jaren was not as involved as I feel like he needed to be on the offensive end. Jaren's 25-point game scoring streak was snapped against the Rockets because you won by a ton. You didn't need him to score a lot. He scored 18 in 19 minutes or something. You didn't need him to do any more. Jaren against the Hawks had a monstrous defensive game, put up all kinds of monster defensive numbers. More on that in just a second. But he only had 10 field goal attempts. He made 6 out of 10 field goal attempts for 15 points. I feel like he needs to be more of a primary offensive option. I don't know if there's like a give and take, or even like, does your defense suffer as a result of how easy the offense comes sometimes? Like when you're scoring easily, and the Grizzlies seem to be scoring easily all game, does that cause you to naturally relax on the defensive end? I'm not sure. But Ja and Dez could get whatever they wanted, and they shot very efficiently. So maybe you should say, all right, we don't need Jaren to get the ball more, but I don't know. It seemed noticeable that he only took 10 shots with how well he was scoring and how well he's been playing of late. But those defensive numbers, 5 blocks and 3 steals. This is after he got a career-high 8 blocks in the previous matchup against the Hawks this season. Jaren got his 4th game of the season with at least 5 blocks and 3 steals. The entire rest of the NBA only has 2 such games. Porzingis has 1. Anthony Davis has 1. Jaren Jackson Jr. has 4. If you want to tweak those numbers to make it just 5 blocks and 2 steals, Jaren has 8 5-block, 2-steal games. The entire rest of the NBA only has 5. Here's a stat from Sean Coleman. Jaren has tied Pau Gasol now for the most games in franchise history with 5 or more blocks. Jaren has 26 such games. I mean, 15 points, 8 rebounds, 5 blocks, 3 steals. That's an awesome game for Jaren. Nitpicky me feels like we need to get him the basketball a little bit more. Anyways, let's take a quick break now, and then I'll continue discussing the Hawks game, and we'll look ahead to the upcoming week and the standings. Grizz fans, 2023-2024 Grizzlies season tickets are on sale now. Season tickets are the best way to guarantee your seats to the biggest matchups at the lowest prices all season long, as well as receive early access to 2023 playoff tickets before they go on sale to the general public. For more information, visit grizzlies.com/season tickets or call 901-888-HOOP today. All right, over the weekend in the 2 victories, Desmond Bane made a total of 8 3-pointers. That moved him into 5th place all-time in Grizzlies franchise history in made threes, passing Rudy Gay. He is now 7 3-pointers behind Jason Williams. He will certainly get there before the season ends. Dillon Brooks in the game against the Hawks, he fell out. He had a lot of trouble. I mean, he had trouble guarding Trae Young. Everyone does. Trae Young had an elite grifting game. Trae Young had the officials in his back pocket. He was tricking them left and right with some non-basketball moves, with some falling over, with accentuating contacts. Trae Young did a good job of fouling Dillon Brooks out. But despite Dillon Brooks fouling out, I think we can highlight that one huge aspect to this Grizzlies winning streak has been the play of Dillon Brooks. Dillon Brooks only scored 6 points against the Hawks. And you're saying, what are you talking about, Keith? Well, Dillon Brooks scored 6 points on 4 field goal attempts. He was 2 out of 3 on 3-pointers. In the Grizzlies' 6-game win streak. Dillon played in 5 of those games. He was suspended for one of them. In the win streak, Dillon has made 13 3-pointers, and he's making 59% of his 3-point attempts. He's 13 for 22 on threes. He's averaging 12 points per game, very modest. He's averaging 8 field goal attempts per game. Let me say this again for you guys. Last 5 games Dillon Brooks has played, he's shooting 51% from the field, 59% from 3. He's averaging 8 field goal attempts, shooting 51%. Against the Hawks, he picked up 5 assists. So last 5 games he's played, 12 points, 3 assists, over 59% from 3. Low usage, high efficiency Dillon Brooks. Let's keep this up, right? This is what we hope for. He can play all NBA first team defense level defense and then just knock down some threes, score when the ball comes to you. So that's the dream. That's what's funny about Jaren only taking 10 shots. It's not Dillon's fault. Dillon shot 4 times. Maybe it's that Luke Kennard guy. He's making too many 3-pointers. We got to share with Jaren. I kid. Obviously, I kid. The Hawks game, again, it seemed like the Grizzlies got whatever they want. It was uncomfortably close at the end of the game because of that second chance scoring of the Hawks. The Grizzlies getting murdered on the offensive glass. The Grizzlies, because of some of the Dillon Brooks foul trouble, they went to small ball a little bit. They played Tyus Jones and Ja Morant and Luke Kennard at the same time. They outscored the Hawks. I'm not saying that's the reason they got killed on the glass or it's a bad thing. I'm just telling you they did it. So we played some more small ball. The closing lineups. In this one, they closed with the starters. Tillman had an awesome game against the Hawks. Tillman sometimes gets short shrifted on the show. I don't highlight his games enough, but he was great against Atlanta, had 15 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 steals. He had a nice sequence in the fourth quarter where he got one of those 3 steals, ended up finishing it on the other end after a pick and roll with Tyus Jones. But Tillman got to close the game, and I think they needed it for the defense, for the rebounding. Yeah, Kennard was solid off the bench again. I don't feel like you could have closed with Kennard. You needed the size of Tillman and the defense of Tillman. You know, maybe that's one of those things where if you're going to sub situationally or choose your closers situationally, if you're winning, lean defense. And to lean defense, you're going to go with Tillman. Just a really good game from him. Oh, and notably, like they closed with the starters, but then Dillon fouled out. And who did they bring in? This is like a fun, I could have done an internet poll about this. You know, if Dillon Brooks fouls out, who are you bringing in? I think almost everybody would have picked Kennard, especially coming off that 31-point game or the 30-point game. No, Tyus Jones came in. So they closed with Ja and Tyus. Got more of the Ja and Tyus lineup. And frankly, they won a clutch game. I don't feel like it was a sharp end to the game for them. The Hawks bungled the clutch time, I think, worse than the Grizzlies. The Hawks, they gave up a dunk to Xavier Tillman where John Collins was arguing a call, and I think that put the Grizzlies up 6. And while they were up 6, all the Grizzlies had to do was basically not allow a 3-pointer. No, they allowed a wide-open corner 3-pointer to DeAndre Hunter. Thankfully, the Hawks missed a couple free throws down the stretch. Thankfully, the Hawks took a long time to foul. After they cut it to 3, Tyus made 1 out of 2 clutch free throws, and so the Grizzlies, hang on for that 4-point win. But it wasn't, I don't know, maybe I'm being too picky, but it didn't seem to be the smoothest performance. But like I said, Morant, 27, Bane, 25. Tillman had a massive game, that 15 points, 8 rebounds, 3 steals. Also, 2 blocks. A 2-block, 3-steal game from Tillman is awesome. Of course, that's going to be overshadowed by Jaren getting 5 blocks and 3 steals. Jaren's Defensive Player of the Year case, it's very, very compelling. For whatever reason, it's fallen out of the national narrative pushers. I don't know why. Brook Lopez is the betting favorite right now because of Milwaukee's team success. I don't know. I feel like Jaren has a much stronger case. Brook Lopez has played, more games, has more total blocks. The Bucks have a better record, but all of Jaren's numbers are just spectacular. And, if you're going to penalize him for playing fewer games, I guess it seems kind of strange. If you asked me to do it, I mean, obviously I'm a Grizzlies podcaster. I'd pick Jaren. I'd also consider Evan Mobley. I feel like Evan Mobley has a stronger Defensive Player of the Year case than Brook Lopez. But I don't know. I don't know why Jaren lost ground in the Defensive Player of the Year case. Maybe he can make a late push. Again, all these block and steal numbers are so spectacular. He's averaging more blocks plus steals than anybody in the NBA. I mean, yes, he's averaging more blocks per game than anybody. Also, blocks and steals per game. He's averaging over 1 more combined blocks and steals than anybody else. So Jaren continues the awesome play. We don't have to get too worked up about individual awards if we don't want to, but it feels like Jaren has made a very strong case now for 2 years in a row that he should be Defensive Player of the Year. So hopefully he can regain the focus of the national media and pick up that bit of hardware. Santi Aldama was scoreless in this game. He continues not finishing the season in the strongest bit of form. He hasn't been, that kind of answer that we hoped he would be, which is not ideal because he's desperately needed. I feel like they desperately need Aldama. Roddy had 6 points. He also, a little bit up and down. Basically, the bench is being carried by Kennard. I mean, Kennard got 2 offensive rebounds. Kennard with 7 total rebounds. A pretty wild stat line for Kennard. 14 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal. Tyus Jones, it was great to see him back in that bench role, delivering. No letdown with him moving to the bench. He had 13 points, made 2 out of 3 threes, got 5 assists, and 0 turnovers. This is the 19th time Tyus Jones has tallied at least 10 points and 5 assists without committing a turnover or foul. And that ties Tony Parker for the most such games since the NBA began tracking this data back in the 1978 season. That's from Justin Kabatko. That's where we get that very unique and specific stat. But now the Grizzlies, as they continue their winning ways, have clinched home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs. This is the first time in franchise history the Grizzlies have had home court advantage in consecutive seasons before. So that's an awesome achievement for the Grizzlies. They are still 2 games ahead of the Kings with 8 games left. The Grizzlies have 4 home games and 4 road games left. The Kings have 3 home games and 5 road games left. So again, just have to win 1 more game than the Kings to finish the year, and then the Grizzlies will be that 2 seed, and they will play whoever wins the 7-8 game in the play-in. Right now, the play-in is Timberwolves and Pelicans are in 7th and 8th, and the Lakers and Thunder are in 9th and 10th. Very interestingly, the Dallas Mavericks are in 11th, a full game behind. Of course, everything's so packed up. Like the Suns are only 1.5 games ahead of the Timberwolves, who are in the 7th seed. So lots of things could change. There's basically no way to figure out who the Grizzlies are going to play in the first round. It could be the Suns, Clippers, Warriors, Timberwolves, Pelicans, Lakers, Thunder, or Mavericks. Or possibly Jazz. Although it feels like the Jazz are headed the wrong way. But it's wild. Where the Grizzlies have wrapped up their playoff berth. They clinched their playoff berth in the fewest games in franchise history. And they could play basically 1 of 8 teams. It's weird. The future is unwritten. Lot of different possibilities. Anyways, the Grizzlies play the Magic on Tuesday night. The Magic have won 3 straight. They upset a Nets team that had just won a big game in their previous game over the Heat. So, the Magic are no slouch. And the Grizzlies might have their hands full in that one. And then they have to play second night of a back-to-back against the Clippers on Wednesday. And then the Clippers again on Friday. For that Friday night Clippers game, if you're in Nashville, Tennessee, well, that is a Grizzlies watch party. I'll be hosting a Grizzlies watch party at Noble's Beer Hall. That's 7 p.m. Friday night, March 31st. Coming down to Noble's, we'll have drink specials, and I'll be giving away some Grizzlies prizes. So see you there. Anyways, thanks to everybody for listening to this episode. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel if you don't already. Tell other Grizzlies fans about the show. Hope you're having a great Monday. Talk to you soon. Go Grizz.